Why, hello and welcome everybody. It is Pohx again. I'm so used to looking at different places for this camera because I keep changing it. So today I want to go ahead and kind of just open up a little bit of a discussion in the YouTube comments down below for you guys. Now just note that this is not going to really contain any gameplay. This is more of just like a discussion video. So I want to go ahead and talk about life versus energy shield and why majority of players or endgame players or whatever you want to call it prefer to play energy shield based characters. I feel like 95% of the community doesn't really understand why energy shield is so strong, and they simply just see a fat number and they go, oh, that's OP. But that's not really what makes it OP. You could have a character with 15k light or 15k energy shield with no defenses, and you could have a build with 9k life with max block, plus to all res, leech, like so many different mechanics and layers of defense. And that 9k life character could be significantly stronger than your 15k ES. I'm not saying life is better, because personally it's not. It's just there are different ways to build your characters, and majority of them favor energy shield. So let's talk about that really fast. So when you're playing an energy shield based character, right, you have so many nodes on the tree that grant you essentially maximum energy shield. So if we just search on here, energy shield, we can see what follows. Every point of intelligence will actually give you maximum ES. So 5% int is equal to 1% ES. 5% or 2 flat strength is equal to 1 max life. I personally noticed that ES scaling is way better. So like if you compare the flat life to the percent ES, I think the percent ES scales way better than the flat life. Now anyway, you've got so many ES clusters across the tree. You can see the Ascendancy nodes in Guardian give you percent ES. Trickster gives you percent ES. I believe Occultist gives you percent and flat ES. Trickster also has the flat ES. My Guardian Ascendancy Radiant Faith grants me energy shield, right? We've got the energy shield wheel, okay? We've got jewels which can all roll energy shield. You've got so many nodes on the tree. Don't forget that aura effect also grants energy shield because of your discipline aura, and it's just endless with how much it is. Now it does pretty much primarily only cover this top half. However, even if you were to come down to the bottom side, you could use jewels that convert, dexterity to intelligence, and guess what? That intelligence is percentage scaling, so it actually gives you something. When you add up all these modifiers, you can get builds that kind of look like this when you add in supports. Now this is a screenshot of me in my hideout with a Mono Guardian support with 33k energy shield. I'm playing a low life character, not a CI. If he was decked out in gear, I was CI and decked out in gear, it would probably be possible to hit, I want to say, around 50 to 60k energy shield without any buffs or shrines, just simply with a Mono Guardian support and an actual character. Now, that's kind of like an exaggerated, point of this, because not everybody runs around with Mono Guardian supports and whatnot, and those are mainly for like shaper farming. However, it's a lot easier to acquire multiple layers of defenses when you're playing an ES character opposed to a life build. Flask effectiveness is probably the most broken thing that's currently in the game, and if you look, there's only, I think, what, 3? Is it just 3? What does this give? Why is this highlighted? This gives Flask effect? I don't even know. We're just going to pretend like that's not even here. The Flask effect nodes would be Alchemist. So you have 8% Flask effect, 8% Flask effect, and then the actual Alchemist cluster, which gives you duration along with Flask effect. Now, why is Flask effect so strong? Flasks are basically like 10 clusters on your skill tree put together, okay? So Witchfire Brew is a unique flask that essentially gives you 100% increased evasion, right? So that's basically like all of Revenge of the Hunted, okay? It also gives you 68% increased damage over time, which scales off of your Flask effect to bump it upwards of 90-something%. That's what, about 7 nodes on the tree? And then it gives you a free curse, which would be a blasphemy as an aura. Unfortunately, this does not scale off curse effect. That's totally fine because it'd be busted since it's from a flask. So this one flask does so much for you and still scales off your Flask effect. Let's move on to like a Ruby flask. So this Ruby flask would go with all of the flasks that you have, all the elemental ones. Gaining 20% Flask effect for this, or like 25%, actually it's 30% from Alchemist, will buff the 6% fire res up to 7. So you actually get an extra +1 max res from these. It'll increase the movement speed of your Quicksilver. It will increase the physical mitigation from a Basalt. You'll increase the damage from a Sulfur. And it just goes on and on with all of the utility flasks that you run. When you play a CI character or a low-life character utilizing a Shavs or a Solaris Lorica, you don't have to worry about your life pool. You don't have to worry about running a life flask just in case. It's totally viable to just take your keyboard and go like this. And that's okay. That's actually how part of the meta is. Personally, I don't really like it, but that's kind of just how it is. Bossing is not always like that unless you're playing a Pathfinder, so I do enjoy that aspect of the game when you're playing like a Leech build or you're playing like a Sustain build, and you actually have to properly manipulate your flasks. That's why I kind of like the Shaper fight for my build. When you play a life variant, like I said before, it's extremely difficult to try to scale to these extremely high margins, and if you are scaling to really high, you have so many drawbacks. So let's look at like a crazy high life-based character, right? Let's search life on the tree. Typically for a life-based build, you want to have about 180% life on your tree with maybe about 5 or 6 jewels oriented towards life as well, okay? Now, if you're playing on the top right side of the tree, kind of like the shadow/witch area, you're already kind of gated because there's just not that much life up here, so you're kind of forced to either go to the Scion life wheel, more to the Templar, or even Marauder side just to get life. So that's kind of already fucks your entire build up. Energy Shield is way more flexible where you can go. I mean, there's starting nodes right here in the Templar with it. You have so much flexibility with it. So let's take a look at an example of a Combs Heart. So I'm going to pull up a Combs Heart really fast. Combs Heart PoE, and with the power of editing, it is now on the screen. Alright, Combs Heart gives 500 flat life, really shitty armor, and an okay fire damage roll with no sockets. As Shavs gives me not as much ES as the life would give me, however it gives me a resistance, and it pretty much breaks a mechanic which says chaos damage does not bypass energy shield. So I get 2 free auras as well, which means this is actually better than a Combs Heart. You can actually get up to 1,000 energy shield rolled chess pieces, and guess what? They still have sockets on them. The reason why a lot of players don't always use a Combs Heart is if you're using a one-hand in a shield and a Combs Heart, you're now forced to either using a 4-link or using an essence crafted, pseudo 4-link, which kind of pushes this out of the way. And then we look at chess pieces like Belly of the Beast, which can roll up to 40% max life, or, various other ones as well. It also is kind of shitty because if you really want to stack a ton of maximum life, you need to use so many uniques, opposed to ES doesn't have to do that. So like if you look at some uniques, you have like Zoph's Blood, for example, right, would give percentage maximum life while still giving a resistance, strength, fire penetration, a bunch of other things like this. And it's kind of a shame because I feel like a lot of the maximum life builds, if you want to hit over 10k life, are themed around kind of a gimmick like fire. You have Explosive Arrow, you have, Iron Will Firestorm. I don't even know if people pay that. I don't think people do Iron Will Flame Blast totems. You can play, Blood Magic Fire Trap. There's a bunch of these things that are all centered around one element, essentially. It's really uncommon to see a guy use Cold Snap with 10k HP or Stormcall with 10k HP because it just doesn't happen. And that kind of really gates the playstyle of a lot of builds, and I feel like that's just not as fun. So overall, if we look at some other uniques, with ES characters, you can get away with so much stuff. You're so flexible with Energy Shield. You have an amulet called Presence of Chayula, which is specifically for low-life characters, that literally is just godly, right? It gives you your one downside. It literally caps your chaos resistance, not caps, but it knocks off all the penalties of chaos resistance, gives you rarity, covers your stun immunity, and you get all attributes, right? The other big thing about this is that a lot of players that play life-based builds get stunned, which is kind of funny, because as ES characters, we never get stunned, because we always use stun immunity on us, because it's just kind of part of the game, right? It's uncommon for us to not hit over 10k ES while still sacrificing gear. As a life-based character, you fucking nut yourself if you get over 10k life, right? And you're not sacrificing gear. We're sacrificing pieces wherever we can as CI because we can get so much effective life. We're now trying to build up and benefit ourselves and, with buffers like, let's get some block, or plus max res, or, physical mitigation, or life regeneration / ES regeneration, Vol Pact, etc. So what does that really mean? Can you still play life-based builds? Of course you can. A lot of the players, and myself included, essentially you can make life-based builds for farming. You can do Shape Strand all you want. You don't ever really have to go up that high in map tier. That's running tier 11 maps. You could run tier 11 maps with, 7 to 8k life, and you're totally fine. You may die from some occasional Vol Detonate Dead or, a quadruple property Essence Mop, but it doesn't mean you still can't have fun. The game may not be balanced 100% entirely around it, but if you look at characters, there are life-based builds doing Shaper. Alkaiser hit level 100 in Hardcore League playing his character. Life-based builds are still okay. Are they up to par with ES builds? No, not really. Now, of course, there's going to be some hipsters commenting like, oh, well, I've got a Legacy Combs Heart and spent $600 on, this one ring, and I have 15k life, and I can do all the content in the game. And again, that's cool if you're able to do that. But, you're part of the 0.1% of players that actually has a build that benefits them to go life. Because let's be honest, 80% of builds could be better if they just went, if they, for example, used a bow and used a Soul Strike Quiver and went CI. Because the CI meta can literally cover anything. You can use a two-handed weapon and go CI, there's Zergl's Crank. You can use one-handed shield, you can go caster, you can go attack-based, you can go regen, you can go leech-based, you can play support. In fact, all your supports are pretty much ES-based. So ES really covers pretty much every type of playstyle in the game, and that's why so many people favor it as well. Anyway, if this video helped you guys, feel free to hit that thumbs up and subscribe and like. I know I said that all backwards. If this video pissed you off, I'm sorry, I'm just speaking my opinion. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you can catch me streaming live every day at twitch.tv/Pohx. Hope you guys have a wonderful time, and I'll see you boys all tomorrow. Take care, everybody.